We have some possibly good news now, as I'm sure most of you are aware. A deal in the making, or maybe made already. A lot can go wrong between now and when the last hostages finally make it home. There's a lot can go wrong until the first hostage makes it home even. But at least it's some movement. For that we give thanks. We give our support and hope that our study together not only enriches us, but enriches all of us in all communities. That wisdom is a topic not only to have by luck, by grace, by accident, but wisdom is something to pursue. And while there'll be a lot of arguments over what exactly defines wisdom, using our minds, using language, presenting multiple viewpoints, at least I think is a good start. Okay, and again, we're with the Seductress. Harold, if you would read us 1 through 5, bring us into this conversation.
Sure. My son, heed my words and store up my commandments with you. Keep my commandments and live. My teaching is the apple of your eye. Bind them on your fingers. Write them on the tablet of your mind. Say to wisdom, you are my sister, and call understanding a kinswoman. She will guard you from a forbidden woman, from an alien woman whose talk is smooth.
Okay, so this is not out of context. There is a context. The chapter that came before also spoke about woman. We've noticed all along that woman is usually presented as a threat and an active threat, whereas the man seems to be a little bit more passive and he's got to be on guard. This back and forth between an actual woman and adultery or prostitution. I read something today which I hadn't really been thinking of, that prostitutes also had husbands who knew what they did and went along with it. That was their livelihood. So it's not as if every prostitute we should think of necessarily as a single woman. But what's been added here? What have we gained from this paragraph? What are the insights? What are the questions that come up?
They brought wisdom back as a woman and obviously as a counterpoint.
So there's bad women, but there's also good women, right? The way that, yeah. And what kind of a woman is she in the social life of this hypothetical man?
Sister, kinsman.
Right? Not lover, not girlfriend, not wife material, but sister. Platonic relationship. Okay. Um, what else do we have here that's interesting or reminiscent? Eileen, just turn on your speaker.
The bind them on your fingers, is that the phylactery? I can't say it.
Phylacteries, yeah,
Thank you.
tefillin. It's certainly reminiscent in the same way that something in the last verse, last week as well, it was reminiscent of that, except for not the only thing, unless it asked a good question. Where is this in relationship to the development of the practice of tefillin? What's clear is that there's this idea of when you commit to something, the symbolic language is you attach it to your body. Attaching to your body is commitment, engagement, ongoing engagement. And sometimes in a concrete way, as the phylacteries are, at least from the 2nd century BCE, from when we found them in practice, but certainly the way they're talked about in both Exodus and Deuteronomy. But also in the section here, some commentators have gone to perhaps it's like more like a signet ring. There's a passage in Song of Songs that talks about the love, commits to his love with a signet, of her wearing a signet ring. except for this, maybe here it talks about fingers and not finger. But people see this connection between wearing something on your body and taking it seriously, engaging in it. Um, the my teaching as the apple of your eye.
Especially with the line two lines later of tablet, it's a promotion of the Apple ink.
Look at that. Wouldn't that have been interesting in that?
But the metaphor of a tablet of your mind that's sort of new to me. Although we think of tablets as the commandments, the idea of a tablet in your mind, I've not seen that metaphor before.
Yeah, the tablet is a place where you document things. And so to me it would be like your hard disk, right? Your your memory.
Memory, yeah.
Yeah. But I had noticed the Apple and the tablet thing. That would have been a great thing for there have been times, of course, in Israeli advertisement that's used biblical verses. One of the cases that I often bring up is in for Egged tour buses once had a little saying on the upper part of the bus where you put the ads, above the windows and the ceiling. Moshe ra'at eretz mineged atatir at the eretz im eged. Right, Moses saw the land from afar, from opposite mineged. You will see the land with eged. And which makes no sense if you don't know the biblical story about Moses not being able to come. I actually did once see a Playboy magazine that there was a time, I think it was a short time, that Playboy was translated into Hebrew. And there was a section of women, and the captions amongst each of the women, their poses, were verses from the Song of Songs, because there's some pretty raunchy stuff in the Song of Songs. So those are interesting to me. Those are interesting nexus when there's when modern society crosses paths with biblical literature in Hebrew, in modern Hebrew in Israel. But the apple of the eye, when people use that term apple of the eye, what are you thinking? What are people thinking of the etymology of that? Where does that come from? Ella, did you want to say something?
Oh, I just had a question about apple because I think in modern Hebrew, isn't the word apple something like maluach?
No, tapuach, close. Tapuach.
Hapuach, okay,
Maluach would be salted, and tapuach maluach would be a salty apple.
okay. So would tapuach in there somewhere? Because I thought that maybe apple of the eye is a expression in English, but that literally, since you don't find, or I guess you didn't find at the time, apples in the Levant, that some other fruit would be used.
Right. So tapuach does refer to some other kind of fruit, maybe like the rosebud or something. But Ella, did you want to say something about the apple of the eye? No? Okay. Anybody see what does apple of the eye mean in English when you use, I've never used it, but she's the apple of my eye, he's the apple.
Me, I favor her. She's my favorite.
Favorite.
Yeah.
In other words, apple is a positive thing. Ella, yes.
It says here in the Hebrew, it says Torati be'ishon einecha.
Right.
Where does apple come in from ishon einecha?
Good question. That's exactly where we're going. What is Ishon? Do you know what Ishon is?
Is it the retina or something? I don't know.
What's the black part? The
The
iris?
pupil. The pupil. It's a pupil.
The pupil. Right. The iris is the white. What has it? How does it go? Anyway, it's the black of the eye.
The pupil.
Yeah, the black of the eye is
The pupil surrounded by the iris, the white part is the conjunctiva.
Okay, so the idea of the black eye, what at least one commentator wrote, that it seems to me, is that's how you see yourself. You see yourself in the ishon of the other person. Right? That's the reflection. You can see yourself in somebody else's eyes. And I would expand that by, it's not just the actual reflection, but also we read eyes, don't we? A lot of body language we can see through the eyes. So So it means something a little bit different, right? My teaching as the apple of your eye. Um, maybe something valuable. People real. It's also another explanation is it's very protected. Your eyelids are constantly protecting it. It's very, very valuable because without it you can't see, can't take in the world. But I'm wondering, it would be interesting to see if there. I don't think there are notes on the JPS translation, as there are.
I'm reading something. I Googled it, and it says that's not JTS, but anyway, it says in the original Hebrew text of Zechariah, the phrase "the apple of his eye" is more literally translated "the little man of his eye." If you look deeply into the eyes, you see a reflection back of
Right.
yourself.
Right, and that's based on the idea that Ishon, if you break it down as Ish, man, and the Vav Nun is diminutive. It's the diminutive
Diminutive.
suffix. What's the word?
Diminutive.
Diminutive, right? So like examples of on Sasha. Yelid Yaldon, right? A boy, a little boy. I remember Eglon, the guy who looked like a who was so fat that Ehud's sword went right in, his dagger went right into him. He's now Eglon. Many people there say he's like a little calf, a little cow. So the own at the end is like that, and therefore, yeah. So still though, that's not exactly like we apple the eye. It'd be interesting to see where apple the eye was used first in one of those big Oxford dictionaries. That would be interesting. But one way or another, where it is here is that you keep the commandments close and guarded. These things that you remember on your mind, but also your eye, you close them in. And if you're going to have companionship, you say if you're going to have if you want to continue with that symbolizing to have companionship, then have a relationship, a symbolic relationship with another woman, this woman, but treat her like a sister, right? Somebody who's close to your close to who there's no danger of you sleeping with. At least that's the idea. Uh, as you see from the last two lines, right? And she will guard you from forbidden woman, from an alien woman whose talk is smooth. Okay, any other comments or questions on this particular block?
So would alien woman refer to somebody who who definitely is not Israelite?
No, I think the alien here is that she's not your wife.
Okay, okay,
I think that's probably it. Isha Zara, yeah.
okay.
Even though it says Minochria, yeah, Zara Minochria. Look at those are terms that are contextual, right? In the context of society, Zar and Nochri are foreigners. But in the context of the marital or familial structure, a Zar and Nochri are from outside of the structure.
Mhm.
Okay. Eileen, you want to read 6 to 12?
Sure. From the window of my house, through my lattice, I looked and saw among the simple, noticed among the youths, a young man devoid of sense. He was crossing the street near her corner, walking toward her house in the dusk of evening, in the dark hours of night. A woman comes toward him, dressed like a streetwalker, with set purpose. She is bustling and restive. She is never at home. Now in the street, now in the square, she lurks at every corner.
Hmm. Kind of should probably break it down to a few things here. What do we learn about this boy, this man, this young man?
He's devoid of sense.
Right. So he's a nebbish, right? He doesn't know what he's doing. He's easy prey,
Doesn't he doesn't know right from wrong.
right? And when is he walking?
Well, he just happens to be walking.
No, when?
In the early evening.
It's a dusk of evening and then also the dark hours of night. Interestingly enough, dark hours of night in Hebrew is Ishon Laila, that same word Ishon. And that's a secondary usage because it's black as the iris. Iris we said, right? Iris is
Oh,
black.
pupil.
Pupil.
Pupil. As black as a pupil is the darkness of the night kind of a thing. Okay, in other words, there's nothing around to save him. Society has dropped aside. It's him and her. And she's looking for blood, right? She's on the hunt. And it goes, very specific, right? With a set purpose. Again, the word lev, nitzuat lev. Um, there's repetitions of different words that are used. No, not here though. Nitzor, we've had the Nitzor is like Lishmor, Titzpon, these are words of guarding over, of protecting. We had the same idea, but different word in the beginning of the first verse, first section. But here, what does she have? She guards, she protects in her heart. That's being used as a phrase for intentionality. So she knows what she's doing. And then what characterizes this woman?
The way she's dressed, the way she's walking.
Okay, is there so much about her dress?
Dressed like a street walker.
Okay, but is there much more?
Mm.
Never at home.
Yeah, so here's that.
Oh,
This is where Malka. This is where it goes deeper, right? She's a street walker with a set purpose. She's bustling and restive. She's never at home. Now in the street, now in the square, lurks in every corner. This kind of widespread threat. This not entirely defined. Very, 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 very threatening, because she's everywhere and she has no place. And I think the counter to this is, instead of being at home where there's a place, where you have the structure, where you have a place to practice your mitzvot and your wisdom, these things that you're guarding. This is the wild west, the wilderness of the world is out there on the street at night. And the dangers are not in wild animals or in robbers. The dangers are in these women. That's the symbol, meaning to say the dangers of straying too much from your regular structured life of mitzvot. You're susceptible to the dangers of idolatry or of any other heretical kind of thing you might think of. Any comments or questions?
Like Lilith? No.
Sasha asked if it's like Lilith. Yeah, well, Sasha, Lilith is as dangerous or inspiring danger as much as she is, because it is night. She's a night being, and because she has no space either. She has wings and she goes from place to place. So these are fears. These are fears. A lot of these fears that you would see in a horror movie, and that are the maker of the movie picks up on things that can't be predicted. Right? They're coming from nowhere. That's always in the movie when it pops up from a place where they're not expecting. It's this placelessness. We as people like to have things in order. We see everything around us. We know what's going on, unexpected. And Lilith, the little that we know about her, and of course, she has a different personality. Lilith, the demoness woman, who was around from a literary point of view already 4,000 years ago, and still survives this very day. Is very active in folklore, not only in Israel but in other places as well. Especially having to do with the dangers of a woman giving birth, the dangers of a child, a boy, especially before his Brit Milah.
I know we talked about this before, but it comes back to me again that we seem in these proverbs to go back and forth between saying to the young man, pay attention, follow my advice, you're responsible, do good on the one hand, on the other hand, saying it's really not your fault because there are all these evil women out there tempting you.
It's kind of the men wanting to have it both ways.
Funny about that.
Funny about that. Yeah, funny about that. Yeah. All right. So, who was reading before? If somebody who didn't read yet could do 1320.
He
You want me
lays
to?
oh.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
She lays hold of him and kisses him. Brazenly, she says to him, I had to make a sacrifice of well being. Today I fulfill my vows. Therefore, I have come out to you, seeking you, and have found you. I have decked my couch with covers of dyed Egyptian linen. I have sprinkled my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Let us drink our fill of love till morning. Let us delight in the amorous embrace. For the man of the house is away. He is off on a distant journey. He took his bag of money with him and will return only at mid-month.
Okay. Deeper into the metaphor.
Well,
Jesus,
I mean, it's giving her an excuse, sort of like saying she has to do this because her husband has taken the money and left her alone. I mean, that's sort of one part of it here.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. I had thought of the fact that he took his money, meaning he'll be away for a while.
Hmm.
Right?
well, she said that he's not going to come back till mid-month.
Mid-month, right?
Yeah.
And
No,
then
but
why did she have to make a sholomim?
Okay, good question. What does the sacrifice have to do with this, right? What could that possibly have to do with it? Well, I think that's the author's way of saying these are not people from outside of society. The danger is not coming from outside of society. The danger is coming from inside of society, utilizing things, regular things that happen in life, even wonderful occasions, to lure you into the evil. I know all the time we're wavering between the metaphor itself and what it symbolizes. But it's one of the a late commentary from it's only in Hebrew. I didn't have the strength to translate it into English, but Malbim, who's a late 19th century Hasidic commentary, says that what the author wanted to show here is that even in mitzvot, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, links even in mitzvot, which is so true. Like so often people do things that say, well, they think they're doing it for the mitzvah, but really they're doing it for other reasons, their ego or whatever it might be. And so the mitzvah is used to lure him in. How could you say no if you're invited to a Sudat mitzvah to be part of the festive celebration of eating from after this, offering the sacrifice? How could you say no? I think that's where this is taking us. You got to come. Come on, what else are we gonna do? And then the luxury involved, right? Um,
What does it mean then when she says, I have fulfilled my vows today?
um,
just a second. I'm distracted because of a phone call, but I'm trying to ignore once again. What line are you on?
Or
Oh, yeah. Sacrifices who that were many sacrifices were said by people, were created by people who said, if this happens to me, God, if you get me out of this situation, I vow that I will bring you a sacrifice. And that's this particular sacrifice of well-being. Shlamim, in other words, in this simplest case, I've survived something. So the vow is to make a sacrifice if you've survived something. She survives. Now she makes it, and it's a happy occasion.
Yeah.
I didn't bring it here, but I brought it before. This reminds me of the story of the rabbi, the Talmudic rabbi who hears about a prostitute and saves all his money and goes and uh, and waits in line for years to get an appointment and waits in line. And the description of him going in there with the bed upon bed and the cloths and the the perfumes and everything. Finally, when he gets up there, the wind comes in through the window, blows his talit, his tzitzit in front of his face, and he says, "Oh my God, I shouldn't be doing this," and then goes away. And that prostitute ends up leaving her profession, converting to Judaism, and marrying that rabbi. I thought of bringing it here, but it's not entirely connected. It's kind of the contra message here that it's the message that all of us young men said, see, there's something good. You could go to a prostitute and you could bring her around. You could get her to do tshuva. Yeah, you could have her reform. No, that's not it here. Okay, so she's bringing him deeper into it. Let's go to the next section.
David,
Oh, yes, go ahead.
this is a frivolous little comment, but this whole passage reminds me of the Rosemary Clooney song, "Come On to My House." I don't know if people remember that. "Come on to my house, I'm going to give you candy.
Right.
I'm going to give you everything," if people have heard that. Rosemary Clooney did not want to sing that at first, by the way. She didn't want to sing it because of the sexual innuendo, but she went ahead and did it, and it catapulted her career. Anyway,
What's the name of the house?
"Come on to my house." Yeah. "Come on to my house. I'm going to give you everything." Oh, all of a sudden we're at Rosemary Clooney.
What?
Come on to my house. You see it there.
Go up to the top and play it.
Oh, I thought we just look at the words and we'll play it. Okay, here, we'll.
Come on to my house, come on. Come on to my house, come on. Come on to my house, I'm gonna give you peach and pear, and I love your hair. Come on to my house, come on.
I happen to know that music doesn't travel well when we're doing Zoom, so so we get to, well, good, that's great. That would be on the. I'm gonna give you an Easter egg.
I thought about how that passage is familiar to Shir HaShirim. It has a lot of the same language. But in Shir HaShirim, the woman goes out at night. She goes out at night, but to meet her beloved. Here, this woman goes out at night to find work, I guess, to find someone who is simple or someone who will be that she can seduce.
Yeah, to entrap. Yeah.
Mhm.
So Malka would be an interesting comparison this week to Song of Songs, and to see what the interrelationship is. I have seen a few references. Today maybe one too in Fox's commentary, but not as a general. I didn't see any general comparison, but that would be interesting, of course. Yes, Ella.
I think since it was written in previous chapters in the Torah that you shouldn't come in contact with the Moabite women, with the Canaanite women, and so on, this is kind of an enticement by the Moabites or the Canaanite women towards Jewish men.
So the difference between what you're referring to, Ella, which is law and rules to live actually having to do with relations between men and women, this is using that structure of relations between women for a deeper message, and that's about.
They want the Jewish men to sin, so God is not going to be on their side and kind of abandon them.
Yes, and that's how it is in the simple laws. But what this text is doing is taking that language and those ideas from those laws,
Embellishing it.
well, more than embellishing, using it for a different purpose. Say, really, right now, it's not talking about a man and a woman, it's talking about knowing to do the good work, knowing who to teach, who to study from, knowing who your teachers are going to be, knowing who to listen to.
Proverbs were written after the Torah was written. This is like saying to you, I'll clubber you over the head. Listen to me. Don't do those things.
Okay. All right. Would you like to read for us 21, 23?
All right, let me grab it. She sways him in her eloquence, turns him aside in her smooth talk. Thoughtlessly he follows her, like an ox going to the slaughter, like a fool to the stocks for punishment, until the arrows pierce his liver. He's like a bird rushing into a trap, not knowing his life is at stake.
It's like the train wreck in slow motion, right? We see it's happen. We've been warned. We see it's about to happen. It does. An interesting metaphor here, the shor el tevach yavo, the ox is going to its slaughter. We know the other metaphor of the lambs going to slaughter, which is used, unfortunately, had been used for those who were caught in the Holocaust and led to their deaths. I think using shore, the ox is more appropriate here because it's a young man who may be also insinuating that or hinting at it could have been he should have known better. He's a strong man. Yeah.
Whereas lamb implies innocence.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's the last section.
Sure. Now, sons, listen to me. Pay attention to my words. Let your mind not wander down her ways. Do not stray onto her paths, for many are those she has struck dead, and numerous are her victims. Her house is a highway to Sheol, leading down to death's inner chambers.
Okay. That sounds like it's almost something from a lyric from a metal band, right? House is a highway to Sheol. On one hand, it feels so repetitive, right? So much of what we've read in these last 7 chapters seems to be not a lot of new stuff. I guess the newness is in the way every particular lesson, because these are lessons. Each chapter here is a different kind of a lecture or a lesson. By the put, they have their own individuality. And what we see here more than anything else is why many scholars say this part of Proverbs is just a collection of traditions that were out there, and not as if somebody sat down to write, okay, what I'm going to write about this particular topic of wisdom, which is going to be new. It was instead compilation of different things, and this is kind of a complete idea here of utilizing something very common in the world where man has an attraction to women, which are not always in the bounds of the framework of the law, and utilizing that commonality, that common, again, this is literature written for men, written by men for men, using that common occurrence, a common tendency, and molding around it the lesson about wisdom in general. So I wanted to take a look at, there was, go ahead.
Leading down to death's inner chamber. It's like they personify death, and in the translation they capitalize death, so it's a person or entity.
Yeah, like Sheol.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I wonder if her house is not a roundabout way of saying her body, and leading down to death's inner chamber, meaning that particular part of her anatomy.
Yeah, I certainly think that's in the back of the mind. Yeah, yeah, that's not by chance. And that's the constant going between that tendency we see in John, we have talked about with in Ezekiel, what Moshe Greenberg taught us, the going back in between the symbolic language, the symbol and the meaning of the symbolic language, kind of switching back and forth. It's not as if here's the story I'm going to tell you, da 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 da, and what it means is da 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 da. No, it's this constant, the poetic ways it goes back and forth. And yeah, that would going down here would definitely, yeah, I would agree with you. I would for sure agree. Thank you for that.
David, could I ask you to help put the entire books, what is it, 37 chapters or whatever, Proverbs, in some context? Because we're evidently in the 7th book, and they all seem about the wisdom of leading a good life and not being tempted by evil women as a metaphor. Is that the theme for the next 30 chapters, or?
Oh, in other words, do you want to stop at some point here about the evil woman, right?
No. I just want to. Sometimes when I'm reading a book, I go to the last chapter so I know how to pay attention along the way, and I want to know, is this theme going to be throughout, or is there like a change or
There,
a
there will be a change. There's different sections, but this sections happens to be a an anthology kind of, or yeah, collection of a collection of lectures. So it's like if you were to pick up some book. That's not the same. I was going to say a festschrift or something like that, but that's edited by someone, and people try to give it, connection between each of the people writing. But it's a gathering of different lessons about the dangers of non-Israelite wisdom that are out there. In other words, not keeping the law, the foreign
That's
element.
all 37 chapters?
No. That's this particular part. I don't remember how it goes, how much it goes up to.
It's interesting that Adele Boleyn in Michelet, every chapter she lists them as lectures instead of chapter one. It's lecture one, lecture two, all
Yeah.
the way through the Michelet. So when you said lectures, that made me think of how she does it.
Yeah, that's how it seems to be. There's going to be a change at chapter 10.
Mhm.
So until 10, we're more or less with this. Does it all have women? I don't know because I don't I don't prepare that much in detail ahead of time. But yeah, I know that it's going to happen. It's
And then generally, what is the change, just so I can anticipate it?
um
Chapter 9, they talk about banquets, right?
yeah, but that's part of this particular
That's
section.
part of that. Let's see.
Yeah, what happened? You know what? I don't
Kind
know.
of goes between. It's like at 8, it stops with the women, and then they have this interlude, like with these two banquets that they describe, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think though, but I think 9 is considered to be part of this section of the book.
And then 10 starts collection 2, right?
Right. So what makes that collection too? A lot of it, first of all, has to do with when it was written. For some people, this part is the latter part. Um, I don't know.
I would probably deals later with relations between men and men, in other words, between people, and like money lending and so on. No? Is that an intelligent guess?
Yeah. No, I think I don't know. I don't know. I didn't map it out yet. We just
Okay.
started reading. I saw it in the introductions, but I don't remember.
Okay, sorry to interject that. I kept thinking, is this whole course going to be about this one theme? That's all I wanted to know.
Yeah, so the difference between the courses that I give and the ones you find in other synagogues or other sections is that this is not there's no plan for this overall course. There's no
No, I didn't mean your course. I meant the Proverbs. Are
yeah,
all the Proverbs on this one theme, or does it change? And you answered the question
yeah,
mostly. So
yeah. Somebody just wrote
Oh, that was me. I just took it from a Doberlin. The
so if you look in the chat box, you'll find a breakdown. I think a lot of what I remember from the introductions was a lot of it has to do with who we attribute them to,
mm.
who these are attributed to. But yeah.
okay.
So, but let's take a look at this section from Brachot. I brought because of what we saw, saying to wisdom that you are my sister. This idea of we're talking about sexual activity in the metaphor, and then we'll say you're my sister, and how laden that is, with Abraham and Isaac also saying to their wives, tell them you're my sister. A totally out of context usage of this from a section that we actually did. I think we did the section about dreams. I seem to remember a few years ago in the summer when we had a summer class. So, Rita Claire, you want to read from the Babylonian Talmud Brachot 57a? Just unmute first.
I'm having a little problem with my iPad. It's not behaving.
Okay.
But I'll try to read it.
All right.
One who sees that he had relations with his mother in a dream, he should anticipate attaining understanding. as it is stated, yea, if you call for understanding.
All right,
From
so
Proverbs.
this genius, I'm being facetious, right? This very complex Freudian understanding, again being facetious,
Yes,
is all based on a word play, because the word for mother is aim, aleph mem, and the word for if is im, aleph mem. So if you saw your mother in a dream, a mother who is an aim, then you should know that'll connect you to the verse in Proverbs that we did months ago. Yea, if im, you call for understanding. That's pretty weak as they go. But go ahead.
one who sees that he had relations with a betrothed young woman in a dream, he should anticipate Torah, as it is stated, Moses commanded us Torah, an inheritance of the congregation of Jacob. Do not read it as Morasha, rather read it as Ni Orasa, but betrothed. One who sees that he had.
Hold on. Just want to explain this. So you have this verse in Deuteronomy, Moshe tziva lanu Moshe, Morasha kihilat Yaakov. Morasha means tradition. It's like Torah as well. But the word Morasha, with the same letters with different dots, comes out is also like the word Merasa, which means betrothed one. So again, in the most flimsy way, connecting something from the dream, the betrothed woman, to something that is like in language, to the word Morasha, Torah, which is kind of an interesting way of dealing with the fact you had a dream, you had a sex dream. It doesn't say about a specific woman. That comes up actually. I don't know if I brought that section in. Yes, I did. But it comes up. It's just this idea of wordplay. Go ahead, do the last two.
One who sees that he had relations with his sister in a dream should anticipate wisdom, as it is stated, say unto wisdom, you are my sister.
Which we had today, right? So because wisdom is going to, go ahead.
One who sees that he had relations with a married woman in a dream is assured that he is one who has a place in the world to come. But this only applies in a case where he did not know her and was not thinking about her that evening.
Right. So the real sex dream kind of thing that people talk about, that you can't get away with that. That's not going to get you anything well. But if you happen to dream of some unknown woman who you know is married, well then you know you made it into Olam Haba. Don't know much about this. Don't know how they got it. Don't know this whole dream interpretation part of the book of the Tractate of Brachot is fascinating. Also, like Mishle, like Proverbs, it's wisdom literature. A lot of it has been lifted from other traditions, which has been shown in various different studies of that particular chapter called, or that section called the Book of Dreams in Brachot. But it does connect us barely, I admit, barely to our passage today. And finally, Malka, you want to read for us from Sota?
Sota 22a, for she has cast down many wounded, and a mighty host are all her slain. For she has cast down what is this? Hippilah, many wounded. This is referring to a Torah scholar who has not yet attained the ability to issue rulings, and yet he issues rulings. And a mighty host, Ba'atzumim, are all her slain. This is referring to a Torah scholar who has obtained the ability to issue rulings, but does not issue rulings and prevents the masses from learning Torah properly.
Right, which I could have this image in my mind where there's a Beit Midrash and they're studying Proverbs, and this guy, the rabbi, just doesn't like the way that his young men are going with all this. So I'm going to take this totally out of context and provide a lesson for our world of rabbis, entirely disconnecting it from what was said in Proverbs, which itself was a metaphor. So it's a metaphor in the metaphor. All right. As you can tell, I'm dealing with a little cold here, so I'm a little bit out of energy. Are there any comments or questions?
It surprises me to to read this, quite honestly.
Because
Uh, I guess I never expected it to be worded that way, to be so intimate.
Okay, yeah. You didn't grow up with the Bible with your version didn't have this chapter in it.
Pardon me?
Your bedside Bible with the pictures didn't have these chapters. Yeah, go ahead, Klaus.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
The whole thing seems to be a little bit like trying to give people absolution for dreaming about these people. It almost seems like not really encouraging them, but saying, well, it's okay. And I don't quite, I have difficulty accepting that as part of this chapter, let's say.
Well, so this part is actually, let's remind ourselves, it's not part of Mishlei of Proverbs. It just utilizes, takes a verse from our chapter that we did totally out of context. About the whole field of dream interpretation is a complicated one, as you well know, Klaus. But
Yeah.
yeah, one might say it's all about justifying people and what they dream, having them to be less anxious about their dreams. And
I see.
I've never done it. I remember a lot of what I dream, like every morning, and my journals had I kept them would be very, very rich. I just dream about. I tell Sasha about the most amazing situations and unbelievably interesting. Most of them are unpleasant because there's something on my mind. I'm sure it's not for me to figure out why I've dreamt about one particular thing or one particular motive. But I've never really been moved, or I should say, I've been too lazy to actually write them down and discuss them with a Freudian therapist. But who knows? There's always time to be a new man, to make myself.
Is anybody
I would-
else experiencing a problem with their with Zoom today, or is it just me?
Just you.
Go-
I would imagine with these commentaries that the commentary writers who probably had pupils and students and followers, I imagine, wanted to keep these students and followers. And so they would deliver news that they thought they wanted to hear, like, don't worry about those dreams. It's normal. It's completely normal. Don't worry about it.
Right. And also, we want to talk to you about misbehaving today. We're not going to talk about, well, you didn't eat kosher and this and that. You might have imagined yourself to be alone at night, and this beautiful woman comes up and says, "You just have to sit down with me to teach me Torah at my mitzvah feast of the." Yeah, they made it interesting, didn't they? Okay, everybody. Yeah, yes, Eileen.
I just wondered if the Proverbs would be part of a current curricula in a yeshiva today.
I don't know where it stands. I think we've spoken before that in the classical black hat European yeshivot, Tanakh per se wasn't studied. Torah was studied every week, the Parsha Shavua with Rashi and with Onkelos, the Aramaic translation. That was obligatory. That's in the Shulchan Aruch. But you may study part of an Haftarah if it comes up on a Shabbat with those commentaries. But there isn't a section in the traditional yeshiva, Ashkenazic yeshiva study that has biblical books. That was something that Harav Kook, I don't know if he was the only one, but he's the one that I know, brought it in the early 20th century into his yeshiva in Jerusalem, the first third of the 20th century. And then from there are others that do it. I don't know where it stands now. When I went to yeshiva, a Hesder yeshiva, there was no importance given to setting aside time just for Tanakh. There doesn't mean people didn't do it. But that was my motivation of studying Bible, studying Tanakh at Hebrew University, because I felt I had no background in it whatsoever. In women's education, it's different. So Navi, but I don't know about Mishlei though. I don't know if Mishlei, in general, most people don't study entire books the way that we do it. What we do here in Or Midbar, where we take an entire book, not just once, but multiple times over the last 10 years in various frameworks, is not that normal. It's not that found because it takes commitment. Takes commitment, takes interest, and it takes, boring chapters along with less boring. And that's why we don't have, 100 people online now, because it's not all that interesting for that many people. But for people that want to stick with it and to slowly build up, accumulate knowledge and a feeling for what this part of the Bible looks like, that to me, that's the way to do it. So I don't know. It would be a question for you to ask your neighbors once you go back to Chicago.
I was just thinking about impressionable young men, 16, 17, 18-year-old young men who have led a relatively sheltered life. And just the language that's in here, I mean, it's curious to me.
But if you go up and you talk to them about it, they may go back to this chapter and say, we met her today on the street. That's Mrs. Eisenberg. We know her well.
Thank you very much.
A little color and a little excitement. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. But I don't know the answer to the question, really.
Okay.
Yeah, Les.
No, I was just waving goodbye.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.